Good afternoon to all of you. We have gathered here today for the National Conference on Higher Education, organized by Law Insider, to discuss recent developments in higher education and the future of online education. All of us would agree that the COVID pandemic has changed the world in things which were unseen and has made exceptions the norms. This is true even in the case of teaching and learning. In the pre-pandemic era, learning online was an exception and taken up in rarest of cases. However, today it has become the new normal. In times where small instructor-led classrooms tended to be the exception, electronic learning solutions have offered collaboration and interaction with experts and peers, as is possible for all of us today gathered on a virtual platform coming together to discuss the future of online education. With this online becoming a norm, our regulatory bodies have also come together to assimilate online learning into the mainstream teaching. And to discuss the same, we have with us eminent persons from the field of academics to share their views. I am Shruti Nandwana, Assistant Professor of Law at Dharmashashtra National Law University, Jabalpur. To introduce the panel, we have with us Dr. Shauli Mukherjee. Ma'am is the Director of School of Education and the Dean of Students Affairs at Adams University, Kolkata. With a purposeful career in education spanning over more than 24 years, Ma'am has dedicated her life towards promotion of child-centric and activity-oriented education. Ma'am has been a recipient of numerous awards, including National Quality Excellence Award, Gem of India Award, National Education Leadership Award in the category of Commitment to Excellence in Education, to name a few. We welcome you, ma'am, on the panel. Next we have with us is Dr. Abhay Kumar. Sir is currently working as the Vice Chancellor of Pratap University, Jaipur. Sir has more than 21 years of experience in academics. Sir has been an entrepreneur for 3 years and has worked in the industry for over 16 years and has a keen interest in the field of marketing management, with strategy being his forte. Before being appointed as the Vice Chancellor of Pratap University, Sir has served as a director and dean for various universities. Sir is a member of numerous bodies related to management education and is on the Board of Management Advisory Board, as well as RDCs of a number of universities and institutions. We welcome you with us, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
We also have with us Dr. Vijay Kumar Singh. Sir is the Dean, School of Law, UPES. Immediately before this, he headed the School of Corporate Law for 3 years as Associate Professor in the Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs. Prior to that, Sir has worked with CCI, Competition Commission of India, as Deputy Director Law, and Sir has taught various subjects on corporate laws and has been instrumental in drafting syllabus of various courses and programs in universities and institutions. We welcome you with us, sir. We also have, last but not the least, Professor Dr. Bharti Kumar. Ma'am is a professor of law at NLU Delhi, and she had joined NLU Delhi in 2009. Prior to this, ma'am had taught at Faculty of Law, Center 1 and Law Center 2 since 1998. Ma'am has been a visiting faculty at Indian Institute of Law, Institute of Constitutional and Parliamentary Studies, Bureau of Parliamentary Studies and Training. Ma'am has coordinated various workshops, seminars at Delhi University and NLU Delhi, and is involved as a faculty coordinator for legal aid activities at NLU Delhi, and has taught a wide range of subjects at both universities. We welcome you, ma'am. To start the discussion, I invite Shauli ma'am to share her views on the developments and the future of online education.
Thank you so much, Shruti, for that wonderful introduction. And right at the very outset, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me on this platform today to share my views on such a pertinent issue, and that is, the future of online education and the recent developments and changes in the higher education sector. So, right at the very beginning, I would like to state that in almost about the last 1.5 years, since the world has been embroiled in the global pandemic, there has been considerable debate and discussions about how higher education should both cope with its immediate threats while also considering meaningful pivots towards new models and innovations for the future. So, actually, thanks to the COVID times, which had caused major disruptions to our traditional thought patterns concerning education, and on the positive note, had actually compelled all of us to think and act outside the box and to embrace considerable flexibility and adaptability and devise innovative strategies as well as methods to significantly address the emerging complexities concerning the sphere of higher education. So, definitely on a positive note, this has been a positive disruption which had been caused in the entire education sector. And normally, in various platforms, I keep on saying that, had it not been for COVID, these changes would have taken maybe another 10 or 15 years. So, which had been accelerated by this global pandemic, and we have all been a witness to it. And we have seen that these positive disruptions have actually happened in the course of just 1.5 years. Also, I think, uh, on any kind of discussion regarding, the future of higher education, I think it is very important for all of us to acknowledge the fact that our current education system is still now a byproduct of the 19th century industrial revolution, which promotes a one size fits all educational structure, which views all its learners as the finished product of this redundant and obsolete and conservative educational system. So I normally refer to it as the factory model of productivity, so which even denies our young learners the basic scope of the fact that they are all born with unique blueprint, and they all have their individual talents, their individual passion, and their individual level of interest. We still follow a conservative and very very conventional and traditional educational system and an educational norm which force our young learners to metaphorically draw and color within the lines, that is to comply, to conform, and to compete, where every single learner is given the same amount of time to learn the same thing in the same way and preferably on the same day. So, absolutely, there is no doubt and there is no wonder that these learners they struggle hard to realize their true potential. So, I think COVID has actually forced all of us to take a very, very different perspective on the same. So I think for the futuristic and the progressive educators, it is high time that we should realize the fact that the real world, which is beyond the confines of a physical fancy infrastructure of a higher educational institute, actually rewards those amply who can actually, think out of the box and can carve their own path. And in order to sustain and thrive in the 21st century, ever increasingly complex workforce, the learners have to be oriented more towards collaboration and cooperation rather than cutthroat competition. In order to address and challenge the emerging global complexities, we do not need mechanically trained minds. I mean, COVID has proved that to all of us, that the world doesn't require mechanically trained minds which are loaded with facts and figures. minds which are systematically formulated to think alike. No, that is not what the world requires right now. Rather, what the world requires are innovative and creative minds, minds which are capable of out of the box ideation and divergent thinking. So that is the need of the hour. So in this context, I think we all should introspect and reflect and ask ourselves these questions: that are we doing enough in these lines to produce and to nurture and to hone the creativity and innovation in our young learners? Also, I would like to say that there is also significant uh, need to place emphasis and focus and importance on developing the 21st century skill sets among our young learners. Skills such as critical thinking, effective communication, creativity, meaningful collaboration, analytical thinking, complex problem solving, fast and effective decision making, and at the same time nurturing one's emotional intelligence. Also giving due importance to the other kinds of quotients rather than only giving importance on one kind of quotient, and that is intelligence quotient. So our current education system places a lot of importance on intelligence quotient, and sadly enough, it neglects the other kinds of quotients, quotients such as intelligence, emotional quotient, EQ, creativity quotient, CQ, passion quotient, PQ, happiness quotient, HQ, spiritual and social quotient, SQ, and most importantly, in the present context, adversity quotient, that is AQ. That is how to deal with the vagaries of life, how to deal with the uncertainties of life and experiences. I mean, these are so very important to hone and nurture among our 21st century learners rather than only harping on the importance of IQ, that is intelligence quotient. So the time has come when our education system has to place significant focus on developing these kind of skill sets and these kind of quotients in our young learners. Also, I feel that the future of higher education can be extremely promising only and if and only when we are truly committed towards reimagining education in the true sense of the term. And when I say reimagining education, we can only think of reimagining education only when we are ready to allow the young learners more time which they can effectively utilize in following their curiosity, creating, sharing, exploring, and experimenting with their own ideas, with their novel ideas and thought processes. We have to stop stigmatizing failures and mistakes and realize that both failures as well as mistakes are essential components of an effective learning experience. So, first of all, as educators as well as parents, we have to stop stigmatizing failures and mistakes. So that is something which we have to take the onus, and we have to do it. Also, I feel that if we truly want our present generation to evolve into creative problem solvers, we must give them ample scope to explore the three essential P's, and that is play, passion, and purpose. So we have to understand and appreciate the fact that it's only a potent combination of play, passion, and purpose that can make a person truly creative. And we also must allow these young creative minds to not only seek innovative solutions to problems, but also to seek inherent problems in the existing solutions. So that is the kind of a shift that we have to envisage and we have to make happen. And also, I believe that in terms of online education, in terms of blended learning, which is here to stay definitely, I believe that the learners should have complete responsibility and ownership of their own learning. And in order to make it happen, they must have both choice as well as voice to determine and express what, where, and how they would want to learn. So both choice as well as voice. So this is something that we have to give them. In order to make this entire, reimagination of education a visible and tangible reality, I think we, as responsible educators, we have to essentially realign our mindsets first to welcome and embrace the paradigm shift from a rigid, formalized, too structured, and overtly organized educational system to a more organic, productive, stress free, and fulfilling educational ecosystem. So, this is my take on this entire topic. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was very enlightening for all of us to have your views on online education. I would now request Dr. Abhay Kumar to share his views on the topic. Sir, I request you to
Okay, please, I got it.
Thank you.
So it is my privilege today to be on this platform along with such distinguished speakers and panelists. And my sincere thanks to Law Insider, Mr. Anu, to you, Shruti ji, and of course, a very pertinent topic to be discussed today. That is higher education, especially the recent trends, the changes which are taking place, along with the importance of online education, which I think Dr. Shauli has very aptly already described. But all of us will have to put our inputs and do something. So, very rightly said that the COVID-19 pandemic had completely disrupted all walks of life, not only education. So when all walks of life have been disrupted, especially by technology, we all knew that right from day one, a year and a half back, even the best of the professors somehow struggled to do something, to do justice. Mostly the senior ones, like us. So it was technology which had taken over. So we had to unlearn, learn, and relearn. This continuous training process had to go on for us. Well, after having appeared in, say, almost about in the last 1.5 years, more than 200 webinars, conferences, and all, I think I have learned a lot from such distinguished panelists as we are here today. Higher education, when we talk, is always linked with school education. Because higher education, the inputs are given by the school itself. The students who come to us are from the school. So when we talk about the changing trends in higher education, we cannot but think of what is going on in school education and how the changes are going to affect higher education and society as a whole. Now, it is indeed historic for the country to get a new education policy after 34 long years. Now, this new policy aims to pave the way for transformational reforms, both in school as well as higher education systems in the country. It has, say, provisions to ensure universal access to school education at all levels, right from preschool to secondary. But what I'm trying to say is that these provisions include infrastructure support, innovative education centers, for example, to bring back dropouts into the mainstream, tracking of students and their learning levels, and say facilitating multiple pathways to learning, involving both formal as well as non-formal education. Now, this 10+2 structure of school curricula is to be replaced by the 5+3+3+4. Now, why am I emphasizing on this? This will bring the uncovered age group of, say, 3 to 6 years under the school curriculum, which has been recognized globally as the most crucial stage in the development of the mental faculties of any child. Now, this is where a research was done. It was found that these students, once they have been brought into the school curricular structure, the output coming out from schools would definitely be very different after 8 to 9 years time. This is what is being said. Now, when we talk about a school curricula, the changes in the school curricula, for example, having internships right from standard 6, we see that countries with which we have been competing long back since, say, I would say China, for example, It had coding as an internship for students of class 6th and all, say way back, many years back. So that is how, in terms of hardware, they have come up so well. Indians, because of their knowledge of English, because of their knowledge of, say, the various softwares, we are almost kings in the software industry, but not in hardware as of now. So we have to understand as to what sort of skills do we have to give to our students. Now, one of the very salient features, the academic bank of credit transfer, which is meant to facilitate the movement of students in and out of program, the multiple entry and exit, all these things are the criteria which the national education policy has given. And I think there is many eligibility criteria set for the higher educational institutions if they have to be a part of the academic bank credit. Now, there are so many things which the national education policy has said, but we will not go into that. I would talk about changing the mindset right if we have to make higher education more relevant. The current education system, we all must understand, is a hangover of the British and the industrial age. Now, this change in mindset will involve 2 or more generations of parents, teachers, grandparents, educators. It is not going to happen in a day. Now, a STEM education focused generation has to give way to the focus which the national education policy is trying to bring about. The corporate world would also need to align to this and change its recruitment and grooming policies. I've talked to many top say people in the corporate world right now. Many of my batchmates, presidents, MDs of various banks, various NGOs, various corporates. There will be several challenges in changing this mindset. However, it can be done and we will have to do it. Now, we will have to reimagine and adopt pedagogical changes also within the institution. Now, education must not only develop, as Dr. Shauli has already said, it should not only develop the cognitive skills in learners, both foundational skills of literacy and numeracy, and the higher order cognitive skills like critical thinking, but also social and emotional skills known as empathy, grit, perseverance, leadership, teamwork, delayed gratification. I would say that if there is a faculty of management, because I'm a man of management, just to tell you an example, that say long back in Stanford University, Walter Mischel had conducted a marshmallow test, an experiment, in which say he had given 2 marshmallows to each student and said that if you complete your work, you can have these 2 marshmallows, but if you can wait for me to come back, I'll give you 4. More than 85 to 90% of the students consumed those 2 marshmallows, and only 10 to 15% waited for the faculty to come back so that they could get 4. It is said that human nature believes in immediate reward system. We cannot wait for delayed gratification. When the life of these students was traced into the years, say 20 years, 35 years hence, it was found that those who believed in delayed gratification were more successful in practical life, even though they might not have scored the highest of the marks. That means, again, the marks system is at stake. The rote learning part, long years back, it was said it was not going to work 100% every time. We will also have to think about reassessment, means assessment parameters for students, and also identify the appropriate learning, say content rubric. Textbooks will also have to be realigned now. That means as far as teachers are concerned, we have an onerous task of thinking and putting the compressed course criteria of the as enunciated by the NEP into those textbooks now. We cannot just go and teach with the same old textbooks once the NEP is implemented. A part of it would be viable. Formative assessment is virtually absent. How do we adapt and implement it seamlessly right now? All challenges. So when we talk about the recent changing trends, we have to train the educators. As I said, even the senior most professors like me, we underwent training by our technology experts, young faculty members in the institution. Till, of course, we had basic training parameters put in place after a few months' time. So training the teachers in technology, training the teachers in pedagogical changes, these all have to be taken up as of now. Without these trainings, I think we are simply groping in the dark right now. Now, when we talk about training, the policy will have to design, say, a learning ecosystem also, which takes into account the geographical and cultural diversity of a country. Say students in the last university in Himachal Pradesh, where I was the Vice Chancellor, We had students who were first learners, almost about 100 of them. That means their parents had never been to college. So what was happening was, if we don't consider the hilly areas, the rural areas, the digital divide, the cultural diversity of our country, that is why regional languages have been implemented in the NEP. But then when we implement teaching these regional languages, we have to understand that the university is supposed to have a cross-cultural diversity in itself. So no one language can be implemented at one point of time. So all these recent trends and changes would bring about certain impediments in the times to come, for which we have to be ready. The onus lies on the educators, the institutions, the leaders, the corporate world, the government, everyone. Now, as Indians, we are socially programmed to accept the top-down approach in all areas of life. Now, the social and educational transformation is only possible with a bottom-up grassroots level intervention. When we talk about a grand scheme of things which is going to happen, an important action would be to repair and revamp the system through a bottom-up approach and bring a definitive change in the mindset of the stakeholders, including office people, staff people in a college or university, parents, right at the outset. I'll tell you one thing. We at Pratap University, Jaipur, have had a series of meetings, not only with children, but with their parents. You know why? The parents must understand what are the changes that their students are undergoing. What are the changes that teachers are undergoing? What are the problems that the university or college is facing? We must make them understand that. Once they have got to understand these things, the cooperation, and as Dr. Shauli had said, collaboration, it has to happen between all the stakeholders. That means government, teachers, institutions, parents, society, environment, everyone has to come together. So a transformation is needed from what to think to how to think, in my opinion. Now, teachers, I must say that as the health workers, as the security forces, they have been termed as Corona warriors long back within the last 1.5 years. I would love to term my teachers as Corona warriors. They have done a yeoman's service to the nation, right from school teachers to higher education teachers. With all those 1,000 universities, 40,000 colleges, 14 lakh faculty members, the statistics say. So there are so many things which have to be taken into account. With so many institutions, private institutions, government institutions, you cannot think of doing everything in a day, but then there is a lot of hard work ahead for us if we want to reimagine higher education in the way we want to. Now, rote learning, as we talk about, though say flexibility in the higher education model and say through the concept of multiple exits is an important step for reducing the number of dropouts. And we want to increase the gross enrollment ratio, that is double it by 2035. This is the vision. So a question still arises on the value of such certifications and diplomas. The Indian psych actually, it closely associates jobs with degrees acquired. That means that mental association of jobs and degrees is still there. Hence, to implement this new system, we first have to dismantle this archaic thinking that only with a degree can one successfully secure a job. Now, this is actually a very dangerous paradigm we are talking about, which undermines and discourages the other innate talents of an individual. I'll give an example. One of my friends, who is a very big consultant in Hyderabad, he told me that one of the CEOs of an organization, they told him they wanted to interview someone for the middle management level and called him to a small restaurant. He asked him to sit in the car. They traveled for almost 40 minutes to the office. When he got down, he said, "This is your appointment letter, you are hired." He doesn't want a CV. He said, many organizations are saying, I don't want a resume. First, I want to talk to the person concerned, then match it with his resume. So things are changing. The mindset is changing. We are talking about Make in India, another revolutionary thing which Honorable Prime Minister has thought about, promoting entrepreneurship. Now, when we talk about promoting entrepreneurship, the first step we think is teaching students finance, making a business plan, marketing, all those things we want to teach them. That is very essential, of course. But what is more essential is changing the mindset. That means creating an entrepreneurial mindset into students, faculty members, industry, each one of them. The creation of this mindset would change the entire scenario. We have to tell the students, of course, many of us talk, be job givers, not job seekers. But then there is another catch to it, that only 3% of the entrepreneurial ventures succeed in the first 3 years. Or 3% or maybe 5%, I'm not exactly aware, but only very few of them. Now, why is that? That means the students are not fully prepared. So what I have done as Vice Chancellor at Pratap University is, I have roped in my alumni for this. They are in very good institutions. Actually, the Mana Pratap group is almost 25 years old, but the university is only 11 years young. So we have so many alumni. We have given them certificate courses. Alumni are also facing problems. This is not a corporate ladder anymore. That means with a particular skill, you climb the ladder, you become a vice president or a president. As during my time, I became senior manager person within a span of 6-7 years with one skill, that was marketing. No, that is not going to happen. Every few months, technologically, the skills are changing. So you have continuously to upgrade, upscale yourself, learn, relearn, unlearn, everything you have to do. Continuous process. So our alumni who were facing problems in the industry because of this, we said, we are here for you. Like you cannot change your parents' name in your resume, so you cannot change your school or university's name in the resume any time in your life. So we are with you. You are wedded to us equally hard. So let's come together. You come and teach our students online. We'll give you certificate courses free of cost. We'll upskill you, upgrade you. And it has been an overwhelming response we have received. Almost 121 alumni registered with us and almost successfully on the verge of completion of the course. We also have certain courses which we have earmarked for the region. That means for the environment. In the rural beltway where we are situated, we have asked the people to come around. Even those in the age bracket of 40, 45 come to us. We'll give you certain skills. Plumbing. We'll teach you how to become a good carpenter. You are a good carpenter, but you don't know the intricacies. You don't have access to the right instruments, where you can access them, where you can get them. So that the working hours are shortened. Your skills can give you more output than you are doing it right now. So there's so many things we can do. Then there is digital connectivity. Actually, I would just tell you one thing about teachers, which I feel, just what Albert Einstein had said. I never teach my pupils. I only attempt to provide the conditions in which they can learn. This is what I have always believed in the Guru Shishya Parampara of ancient India. We talk about attaining skills. Now, what better skills than Arjun with a say bow and arrow? What better skills than Bhim with a gada? Anywhere in the world, nobody could match them. So why not today? That means sometimes we either as teachers are lacking somewhere, or the students are lacking in their depth of attachment to the teachers and the institutions. There's something somewhere wrong. So since we are senior, we have to put it right. So hand holding is the first thing. Let's hand hold our students right now. Give them a space where they can think they are wanted. And I have seen this happening. The worst and the most notorious of the students who were considered in the college, in the university, they have come back to us and become so well behaved. I cannot tell you, not all, but most of them. Now, when we are living in an era where robotics and artificial intelligence will replace many of our current jobs, global connectivity will continue to allow companies to outsource labor to other countries. As I said, corporate ladder is no more there. There is a corporate maze. Bhul bhulaiya ban gayi hai, jisme you have to maneuver through with changes in skills, upskilling yourself. Now, every year, there's a statistics that 8,934 students are committing suicide in India. Even in IITs and NITs. Why is this happening? Let's understand, when we talk about redefining education and the recent trends in education, well, what are is this the sort of trend we require? No, we don't. So we have to make changes. We have to amend the system itself. That means where we are living, where we are working, we have to change ourselves. We have to change the, software within the institution, the hardware within the institution, of course, with the best possible, help from the management, of course. Now, over the last 250 years, we have experienced 4 different industrial revolutions also, which have changed the understanding of humanity from head to toe. Right now, as we talked about Industry 3 in one of the write-ups which was sent to us, we can talk about the Industry 4 also. We are entering a new era where learning must change entirely. So to just pause in between, Shruti, give me a thumbs up when I have to stop. A teacher never stops. Okay, when my time finishes. Okay.
So you can take your
So
time.
we have a time and space independent education, a personalized learning. We should think about learning flexibility. Then education 4 has come, a project-based learning. We all talk about it. But then what we don't talk about it, that as technology is important, what is more important is the people who are managing that technology. So what we have to do, again, that training part is there. Technology may come in various ways, improvements, new technologies. Give me a small, say, example. We are talking about Bitcoins, Ethereums right now. How many of us have an in-depth knowledge of that? Very few. Say only about 0.3 people or probably 2.3% people in the world are actually knowing about properly about Bitcoins and Ethereums. We as teachers must go through it. Tell our students what it is. When the banking system must have come into vogue after the barter system, the teachers must have done something about it. And I must say the teachers must be given their rightful place in society. They should be the first citizens of the society. Any doctor, any engineer has to be first taught by a teacher. And therefore, we say that it is not only creating a job for a student, but the holistic life changes which a student undergoes has to be done by a mentor or a teacher or a guru. Chanakya is a burning example of this. He just gave the entire nation a new leader. He picked it up from the masses. Chandragupta was picked up from the masses and given the mantle because he knew that the talent was there. So let's know how to identify those talents. So there are so many things, at the end, I think let's talk about, according to the latest report, say, which the BCG gives, that only about 30% of say digital transformation initiatives reach their target value. And the lack of skilled talent deployment, say, is one of the key factors that impact this journey of transformation. So we have to improve the learning curve, create a data and digital learning workforce. As a demographic dividend is important right now, where we say that we have to capitalize on the India being so young, an average age of 27 or plus. So equally important is the digital dividend we must capitalize on. It is not only a demographic dividend, but a digital dividend. And if we talk about online learning, till we start capitalizing on this digital dividend, so many edutech companies come daily to me in this college, in the university. But how to choose from them? They are so very costly, some of them. We have already established LMSs, we have already established ERPs. But then, this is where, when we talk about equality in terms of accreditation, in terms of everything in the NEP between government institutions, private institutions, I have always exhorted the policy makers not to view the private institutions initially with a distrust. Have checks and balances in place, but trust them. You are giving some people 500 crores a year, they are returning you 100 crores back because they cannot spend it. Why not think of giving some aid to the private institutions with checks and balances? I've always been exhorting the, say, policy makers for that. Now, last, give me just 2 minutes. About say 7-8 months back or 9 months back, I was going through a LinkedIn post of our Honorable Prime Minister. He talked about 5 vowels of a new normal. That was 8 months back. It hit me like anything. You know what he said? He said that just as in English language, the 5 vowels are important, A, E, I, O, U. Likewise, in a real life, in a changing business situation, in a changing education scenario, in a changing digital scenario, this A, E, I, O is equally important. Now, what would this A, E, I, O be? A is adaptability, for example. I is inclusiveness. Then E is efficiency. O is opportunity, and U is universalism. Now, adaptation to the new technology, that is one of the most important factors, which must be prevalent at every institution in every walk of life. Then we have E, efficiency. The Honorable Prime Minister put stress on the fact that efficiency should not be working hours of 9 to 5, it should be the effectiveness. That means what is the productivity of the individual and the organization in those working hours. Actually, sometimes in our own institutions, we're lagging behind. We take attendance and say the faculty must come at 9 sharp and leave at 5 sharp, for example. But then what productivity he or she has done in the entire day cannot be mapped. So let's start mapping it. And once we map it, sometimes I'm proud to say, or rather, I wouldn't talk on the same platform in my organization, that sometimes I close my eyes when something like this happens and someone comes late, someone goes a bit earlier after informing me. So I close my eyes because I know that person has been doing in terms of productivity much more than anybody else was doing in the organization. So you have to understand that fact as a leader also. The leader also must have a change in the mindset. Then it is AEI, inclusivity. That means everyone should come into the fold. Together we have to do it. We cannot remain as isolated islands of excellence. The collaboration part is the most important part. That is, I'll give an example. In the recent region, we have shared our videos during COVID times, helped each other. Like for example, at Pratap University, the pharmacy department is the best. Our professor taught many of the students in the region. Likewise, everyone was resistant initially in sharing such resources. I, as a manager of management, taught the first lesson in a university nearby online and said, I'll start with it as a vice chancellor, don't worry. You know what happened? Everyone, we started coming together. That means collaboration is very important. We cannot do it alone. These changes have to come when we are together. Okay, then universalism. You know, we have to consider this world as one. We cannot think ourselves as being a part of a region, only a part of, we have to go global to local and local to global. So ultimately, the blended learning part, as people have always said, is here to stay. We cannot bypass the face-to-face teaching or physical teaching. Flip learning is here, online teaching is here. There are so many methods of doing it. Actually, things will keep on changing, keep on maturing. But online is here to stay forever and offline will always be there. So it will be blended learning, of course. So thank you so much. I think I have exceeded my time by about say 5 minutes or so. So pardon me for that. I'll hand over the mic to you.
Thank you so much, sir. And as has been rightly pointed out by you, but that skill development is a continuous process to be adopted by each and every one of us. And this COVID pandemic has made it easier. So for example, as faculties, we've been able to attend numerous faculty development programs sitting at the comfort of our homes and not missing colleges or university teaching in the morning. So that is one thing that is here to stay and here to help us. Thank you so much, sir. I now request Dr. Vijay Kumar Singh to please share his views on the topic.
Thank you, Shruti, and my fellow panelist, Dr. Abhay. It was an interesting thought which you shared, and in fact, you have covered the whole ground of what this conference is all about. And I must say, what comes to the core of it is change of mindset, which we have been talking about. And I think Dr. Shauli also pointed out. And we all agree to this, that change of mindset is very, very important, because you cannot have transformation without change of mindset. If you want to transform, if you want to build capacity, if you want to change something, change of mindset is the first step. And that is where I think we are wavering around, because we have now seen the developments. Pandemic was definitely a catalyst to move this transformation towards digital education. It helped all of us to transform ourselves in a way to build our capacity, to learn, to grow. But at the same time, we have seen that it has been accepted in a way, but it has not become a norm yet. And once we are opening up, it is like said that, okay, fine, again, going back to the same thing. Probably online education is not just bringing the same pedagogy into the online education. It requires a different kind of a pedagogy. It requires a different kind of a preparation. It requires a different kind of an assimilation, including the evaluation pattern. You cannot have the same evaluation pattern which you have in a face-to-face mode for an online teaching and learning methodology. Evaluation pattern has to move towards more formative assessment, and this requires training. There is definitely a requirement of training of the faculty members, training of the teachers, and which national education policy also focuses, either it is school education or higher education. This part needs to be dealt with or focused more and more. It is very, very important for all the stakeholders. We are talking about universities, we are talking about government, or the teacher himself or herself has to build their capacity as to moving forward into the online education. Pandemic was definitely a catalyst. It allowed each one of us to build some capability because we had to. There was no other option left with. And as you said, everybody got some training. They wanted to move on. But in my experience, I find that there was a requirement of a passion, because this learning does not happen without a passion. If you don't have an inclination or a liking towards a particular technology or a particular way of giving lectures or way of imparting education, probably it is not going to happen. Because if you see people are satisfied with the minimal tools which they could utilize in teaching and then move on, then it is not going to happen. It is not going to help. It is important for us to move on with the quality part of it when we are talking about online education. So focus should be on quality. It is not just like recording few lectures and then giving it. There was a flood of webinars during the online education, you would say. So many webinars. Sometimes it was very difficult to keep track. Shruti pointed out that it allowed us to attend FDPs, yes, and sometimes 5 FDPs at a time. So it was like whether we were focusing on one of them and learning out of it is a question. So these are some of the challenges, but I don't undermine the development which has happened in the last 2 years. I believe it has definitely put the focus on this hybrid mode of learning, which has been lacking behind. And probably it is going to stay. So it is not going to end forever, because there are multiple things which could be done in an online platform, and the time for personal interaction can be saved with the teachers. Like, for example, if I am talking about online education, probably the concepts can be taught in an asynchronous mode, maybe a recorded lecture. And in the classroom, it could be more interaction which can happen. And I think this is what is going to be the trend in future, and that is going to change. Dr. Abhay pointed out about the credit bank. I think that is again going to be a significant transformation. In future, probably a student in Rajasthan can study in Pratap University some credit and can come to UPES in Dehradun for some credit, probably go to NLU Delhi for some credits. So that is going to be the future. And this can happen only when there is a commonality of curriculum. When we are talking about the quality of education should be similar, because the credit which is offered in Pratap or NLU Delhi or UPES has to be on equivalence level, because that has to be accepted. And this can only happen when there is some centrality around the curriculum, around the pedagogy. And this needs to be taken care of the higher education regulator, I believe, which is still in the transformation process. And we all are waiting that what is going to happen around it. But whatever may happen, but the progress which is at present needs to be accelerated, because that is very, very important aspect as far as this is concerned. I was told to speak a bit on the technology part of it, artificial intelligence, how it is going to impact or help the online education or the education as a whole. I find in the national education policy itself, it is in 4 parts. And the technology part has been covered in other key areas of focus, if you look at it. So this basically shows that it is one of the areas which has been talked about. Definitely technology use and its integration will be at the core of it. So I believe it cannot be other. It has to be core and part of each of these parts, which has been talked about in national education policy. National education policy also talks about a very, very important element that is called regional integration and regional inclusiveness. And that can happen only by way of a technology. So in a sense, we are, if I may say, for legal education, because I belong to that field, I can say if the law has to be taught in Marathi, or the law has to be taught in Kannada, or the law has to be taught in Gujarati, probably technology is going to help, because you cannot train so many teachers in respective languages. Probably you have to develop an AI system which takes care of this situation, and gives a comparison. And I believe it is workable, because there are plenty of AI systems. And I was looking at the UGC website, and in fact, MHRD, Ministry of Education website. And they have developed an app which translates into different languages. Probably this is what is going to be the future, wherein anybody can study in their own mother tongue. And it is said that if you study in your own mother tongue, you learn more, and you learn quickly, because most of the efforts goes in translation. Because I find there are plenty of students who come and struggle in English. They don't understand. They understand better in their mother tongue. However, we have to promote it, the regional language, and that is very, very important. When we are saying technology education, National Education Policy also talks about National Education, Technology Forum, NETF, in fact. This needs to be brought up as fast as possible, because this is important, and it helps in multiple ways. Another important challenge which technology would pose is about data. Data protection bill is still under discussion, and I think as soon as possible this should come up. People should have clarity on the legal perspective of data, what happens to their data, what is the privacy concerns. All these things needs to be settled as soon as possible, because if you really want to transform, these things needs to be settled very, very clearly. Otherwise, people will not buy these points. People will not come on your internet platform or online education. There are three laws, when we talk about online system, and one of the most famous laws was Moore's law. And Moore's law basically says that every 18 months, the amount of transistors can be accommodated on an integrated circuit increases, doubles. That is what Moore's law says. And there is a Crider's law which says that the data holding capacity of a chip, or you can say magnetic strip, is also increasing accordingly to that particular level. However, there is Nielsen's law which says that the internet speed is not increasing that way. So though we may have systems with 5G, but whether our internet speed is supporting the 5G system is a question which needs to be. And internet penetrability in the country is also a question, because only the 30% of the population of our country is connected to internet. That is what the data says. Now, these things needs a bit of an address, because because education cannot be just for few. Education has to reach to everybody, and each and everybody in the corners of the whole country. Though I find that mobile phones or iPhones or phones have reached at the grassroots levels, but not for education, because I often visit villages. And when I go there, I find that students are not using it, particularly the school kids. And I believe that is something which needs a bit of an attention by everybody who is involved in the education sector. Particularly we as educators, we as leaders have to evolve, discuss, and bring these points forward, and for the regulators for consideration. And definitely, yes, we can do our own bit by way of training, by way of capacity building. So these are some few things which I had to say, Shruti, and I think we would like to hear Bharti as well. And I would be happy to take questions, because I feel that is a better way of communication. I can keep on speaking one way. There's no point. Right? Please go ahead. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And sir has rightly pointed out about the digital divide. A lot of us have faced it with students also, with requests coming in that there is problems in connectivity and issues in taking up classes. I would now request Bharti ma'am to please share her views on the topic.
Well, thank you so much. So I have the benefit of my co-panelist, covering most of the area, concerning the theme. And you can imagine I'm sitting in Delhi and I'm coughing. So the AQI is very high right now here. And it's affecting all of us, right? So education, which is the core theme, the higher education. I would just say that yes, education really it plays such a major transformative role, and which cannot be overemphasized. And because I belong to the realm of legal education, it has a particular role to play in the societal development, in the societal, the kind of reforms that we attempt to bring about. Education as a whole, it contributes immensely to society because it helps in bringing resilience, and it actually helps education to connect to all the other sectors of society. So when we look at the new education policy, I would just highlight a couple of areas which have been mentioned earlier, but there is a need to perhaps re-emphasize them. So, of course, the kind of inclusivity of education, that is absolutely an imperative if we want to make it affordable and accessible to every nook and corner of the country and to every segment of society. And we cannot remain oblivious to so many, the kind of literacy rate which is there presently in the country, and so many regions and segments, which are deprived of education, because education is really the panacea to really futuristic progress and prosperity of an individual and a nation. So when you're looking at the present situation, of course, employability and entrepreneurship, I think these are the two core requisites, which need to be always integrated. They are there in ample measure, but they have to be taken up in a more rigorous manner, by the policymakers and the, for the implementation purposes. Digitalization is absolutely, it's the outcome of the present pandemic. It was always there. It's not that it has suddenly come into being, but it has been catalyzed in the present circumstances. Although we may also emphasize that socialization as an aspect of education cannot be ignored. So when we talk about blended learning and hybrid modes of learning, we can never replace, the student teacher kind of, face-to-face interaction with the online mode. So so the further aspects which Dr. Vijay Kumar spelled out, yes, assessment, and Dr. Abhay put it so aptly, assessment and the interactive aspects of online mode, I find crucially missing. In fact, even at our college, we are trying to come up with, other means, how to encourage this, or how to incentivize students to be not only physically connected on the online medium and to show on the screen that the name is being displayed, but at least, to have some more active means of, connecting to them. So digitalization, or the digital, the kind of dividend, as Dr. Abhay Kumar said, yes, it's a major gain, and it has to be utilized, as much as possible. The other thing which I find very fascinating about the national education policy is the multidisciplinary element. And this multidisciplinary element, especially, a place like Pratap University, where it is headed by such an able, leader. So Dr. Abhay Kumar belongs to the management segment. So, we can have so many crisscross kind of the way it can emerge. The potentials and the kind of creativity is immense. And so this can be the kind of permutation and combination of subjects, as was referred the academic credit bank. This can be fantastic, in terms of outcomes. I would also like to emphasize that it was again very rightly put. So everything I'm giving a reference to the earlier situation, because all of you have put it across so well. So the school education and the higher education, there have to be the connecting links. And I find, that in some streams, especially the legal stream, those links are kind of missing. So what happens is, so when the student is in the, say, the +2 standard presently, at least the kind of framework we are following, so the students are not so well aware of the kind of possibilities that are there in, so they are more acquainted with the traditional subjects as medicine and engineering and so on. So there needs to be a better acquaintance, with the emerging areas. and whether it is law and so on. The other aspect is the higher studies, the advanced, because it's higher education comprises of undergraduate and postgraduate levels. So at the postgraduate level, I can say, for instance, for law, there is a very interesting interface, which say the Bar Council of India has with the legal education standards, where they're attempting to intervene, for in a positive and a negative way. So the 1 year LLM course is being rolled back, and uh, thankfully, we are coming up with back to the 2 year, term. But then they have also brought in the common entrance test for the postgraduate level, which will be conducted by the Bar Council of India, which has its own, you know, uh, the problem areas are there, because Bar Council of India is primarily meant for regulating the entry of the law students to the advocacy and to the practice of the profession. So with this kind of a mandate, where they can intervene effectively, and be regulating the legal education in the country, and at a level where the postgraduate level is not even an essential for the practice of the profession. So it is a little strange, as to why is it so. Ultimately, we may say that the soft skills of the child, of the student, they matter a lot. That I think every single speaker, Dr. Shauli and Dr. Abhay and Dr. Vijay, we have all, and I think I agree absolutely with them that the 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 psychological, emotional, and the overall well-being of the student is really at the center of the entire educational system, because it's meant not only to equip skill sets and various degrees, ultimately toward him, but also to make him a well-rounded personality. And for that, I think there needs to be lots of interventions that are needed in terms of, say, counseling, in terms of the psychological inputs, and ultimately, of course, the faculties have to be well adept. They have to be trained, and I find, even in my interactions when we have the classes, sometimes, we have students who, where there's a sudden outburst in the class, and you have to handle it separately. So it's, so you have to be kind of prepared, not only in the subject that you teach, but also in a little bit of the psychological handling of the students, especially at this stage and age, where the propensity to, it's a very vulnerable age which is there, and there are so many things troubling them presently. They are thinking in terms of settling down, in terms of career advancement, in terms of job prospects. So there is an avalanche of issues, which affect, the students at this age. So there has to be a total comprehension from this point of view. I guess research is an area which has been, kind of has been on the side, or in the, it has been sidestepped often, although it has been focused enough, by way of policy documents. And one thing I would like to also, because there's a project which I think a teacher of our faculty is intending to take up, and I think it is well meant, that whatever the kind of the research studies that are done in every college, there are PhD doctoral theses that are submitted, and they never see the light of the day after they are, they pass through the viva and the entire procedure. Maybe some of them are published, but there is no concrete output, or uh, some kind of a positive way in utilizing the suggestions, the recommendations, which every student goes through the fair rigors, of doing, completing the research. So, I mean, that's one suggestion, that at least something more meaningful can be utilized, by way of those the submissions that are made. So, and finally, yes, the world is my oyster. That's the kind of thing we have, an internationalization of or the and we have the SDG goals. We have the Sustainable Development Goals, and there is a particular goal, SDG 4, I believe, and in which there are targets 4.3 and 4.7, which talk about education and of higher education. And certainly we need to be well connected, well subscribing to these goals. We are part of the international community and a very major part. We are aspiring to be a superpower in the near future. And so and there are also provisions in the national education policy for the purpose of bringing in collaborations and partnerships at the international level. There are schemes like Gyan and so many others, which help you to connect to the best of faculties across regions and borders. So yes, local and global, what Dr. Abhay mentioned, that exchange and interchange, that remains the paramount. And it can only be in a mutually collaborative manner that we shall do our best and provide the best, for the coming generations. And well, thank you so much for for this particular conference and the theme and the co-panelists with me. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And especially your thoughts on research and improving and enhancing research are very important, because I think research has taken a backseat in us adjusting to the pandemic and the new technology. So with this, we come to an end of the session, and we have had very good views on how this national education policy is going to help us. How can it be implemented into our learning and teaching process, and how collaboration, skill training, and development as a whole would help us in bringing education even more forward and making learning meaningful. And I believe that the biggest benefit that e-learning has given us is the lack of pressure on students. They are at a little ease and comfort to set their own schedule, to study at the time that they have, and to learn what makes them more happier, and to look forward to something that makes them happier. So I hope this goes on, and all of us are reopening sessions, schools, colleges, and universities are reopening for physical attendances. But let's hope this helps those who are suffering from the digital divide, because it is a reality and all of us are facing it. The digital divide is a reality. However, collaboration is something that has developed through online learning. And I hope, like we've collaborated all through Law Insider for this, we collaborate even further for further sessions. Thank you so much to all of you for being together with us on this session.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.